So finally, the time has come. We now have a new speculation map to go over, but everything is not as it seems. Now, taking a look at the first map, there is a huge transition between what we had and what we are currently sitting at. And a lot of talk of most of these properties kind of being switched around and a lot of code names. I believe that is the bigger reason of why we are kind of slow in this speculation season. I hear a lot of stuff behind the scenes, a lot of stuff about what could be coming, and a lot of stuff that's not featured on the map. So take everything that we say in this video with a grain of salt, because most stuff on this map is not set to come. It has not been officially released by Universal, except for Chucky. That is pretty much the only thing that's guaranteed to come to the event. First, let's start off with the houses this year. And while of course we have Chucky coming, we now know it's in a soundstage, and some people are a little upset about it being in a soundstage versus it being in a tent house or something to that nature, but maybe they need the room for Chucky's ego. Now, I know a lot of people were upset about the Exorcist still being on this map, but the new one, The Believer, did recently at a CinemaCon, showed some scenes off to the audience and they loved it. They were talking about it was really scary. The story this time around is about two girls that are possessed, or two younger sisters. There's a lot that could be done with this one being the new one. We have new scenes. It's not just the same in one room location. They could do a lot more with this, so I'm kind of stoked to see the Exorcist still be on here. Who knows if it will stay or if this is a code name for something else that could be coming. Maybe The Conjuring, maybe. And we have up next is Demon Slayer. I don't know about this one. I'm gonna call this one is a code name or a trick for something else that could be coming, because I don't see Demon Slayer coming. Although at the sister park, Universal Studios Japan, they are known to do anime overlays on their attractions and their rides and shows. And it's really, really popular as Demon Slayer is. I just don't see that translating to an American audience to be that big blockbuster that's gonna pull in folks. Now, it would pull in a different demographic that's never been to Halloween Horror Nights, but those are much younger, maybe, fan base. I just don't see it happening. But what do I know? I don't know. Leave it down in the comment section. Do you think this is just a code name, or do you think Demon Slayer could be coming to Halloween Horror Nights? And we're gonna move on from there. We have Monsters in Paris, which makes me think of a Kanye West Jay-Z song. I'm not even gonna say what that song is, but it makes me think of that. Not much is still known about this one. It's still on the map. I believe it's gonna be our next IP announced. You didn't hear that from me. I'm gonna just call that. It's gonna be our IP announced in May, but that's just my thoughts on that one. Yeah, Monsters in Paris, I'm excited. Up next is a weird one, because earlier on the first map, we had it being HBO's The Last of Us, which I was excited because I did watch the season 1. I'm really stoked for this to come to Halloween Horror Nights, but now it's a switch since the first map. Now with the new map, it is Naughty Dog, so I'm not sure if something fell through, if they couldn't work out a relationship with HBO or Warner Brothers on that kind of licensing, but now it's Naughty Dog's The Last of Us, which is just weird in my opinion. For it not to be based on the show, maybe it was easier for them to get the rights to the game as opposed to the show, but nonetheless, I believe 95%, I'm gonna say, that Last of Us is coming, whether it's the movie or whether it's the TV show or the game. Now up next is the little, I guess, angry devil face, which, if you don't know, Legacy on Twitter, he talks about Halloween Horror Nights. He drops clues and hints about things coming. There was some talk about a sort of movie property, but loosely based on the movie property Crossroads. It was about this young guy who goes down to New Orleans or Georgia or somewhere in that vicinity and sells his soul to basically have a music career. And this is, I'm assuming this is going to be our music-based house this year, and it's going to talk about maybe him selling his soul and maybe demons and stuff. There's a lot of demons this year, just putting it out there. Demons. Just HHN 32 demons is what this year's tagline should be. Up next is a weird one because it's a fun house. I'm assuming like a clown house, fun house. Maybe this is like the fear of clowns and it's gonna have different clowns. It's an original. Not quite sure if it's original like Jack or original like they're taking different movie properties with clowns in them and throwing them in a house all together, like the fear of clowns, and just putting killer clowns and Terrifier and I don't know, it could be anything at this point. No one really knows about this property. It states it's an original, but we'll have to see about that one. Up next is a rather weird one. It's like a castle dragon. I'm thinking Game of Thrones-esque haunted house, like maybe we are in the castle itself. There's a dragon outside. That could be some really cool effects they can do with that. And if you're thinking like this is not really scary, if you've ever watched Game of Thrones, the White Walkers, they're really looking, I mean, they're terrifying when you see the makeup on them. And it could be something like that. Maybe it's like an Army of Dead type of thing. Maybe, I mean, I'm just spitballing, but there's so much stuff you can do with medieval times that this could be a rather interesting house. And the fact that it's listed in a soundstage makes me even more intrigued that we might see like a big gigantic castle that we're going into. Could be really cool. Could be maybe nightingales. And the last one for the houses besides the top secret, it's a Wiccan symbol with a weird witch house maybe, but we had witches last year, so I'm not quite sure what this is. I don't know if it's like a witchcraft house or a satanic cult or something along that lines with the demons kind of esque thing, but I don't know. I haven't heard any word on really any of the originals this year. I hear more stuff about the IPs than the originals, so I'm really intrigued to see what we get for the originals this year, because they're always the fan favorite. Now this brings us to the biggest property that is on this map, is the top secret. Everyone is talking about top secret. What could it be? Now there's only 3 properties that come to mind and that have been rumbling for the past few years. That would be The Conjuring, Scream, and Stranger Things. Now, I'm not stating that it could be any one of these, but there has been talk behind the scenes about each one of these properties coming to Halloween Horror Nights. Would you be excited if it was one of these 3, and which one would you want to see the most? Leave it down in the comment section and let me know which one of these 3 are you most excited if it could potentially come to this year. Because I've been reading a lot of negative comments about the speculation map this year. Maybe this would be the saving grace. Maybe. Nightmare Fuel is back, as I've always stated and everyone knows by now. Nightmare Fuel's kind of on a longer contract for this Halloween Horror Nights run, so it's going to be coming back quite for the foreseeable future. And we also have a second show, which is a strange one. And if you're new to Halloween Horror Nights and you don't know where this is, right outside the crepe stand, basically in that open area before we get to the scare zone of Central Park, they usually can sometimes build a stage and have a show there. It kind of sucks for the Central Park scare zones for that show, because just crowd control and the ambience is it just doesn't help. It's a really weird area to put a show, but they don't really have any other areas to put a show that would be with Halloween Horror Nights. So maybe we might get a show there. And the last time we had a show, we had Academy of Villains there. We had Carnage Returns there. So good enough stage that they can build and put a lot of effects and stuff on it, but just the show dynamics of it, just it's not as good as watching the Lagoon show, which I wish we had, but sadly we won't get that this year. And really, scare zones wise, we have them all 5 listed as far as the locations. Now only 2 have been sort of secretly talked about. We have Holidays, which is a Hollywood original coming over to Orlando. That's kind of interesting to see. I think it's a great idea. We're gonna get all sorts of different holiday characters like the Feaster Bunny, and I don't know, just think of different holidays, you know. And The Last of Us is in New York, which this is the one part that makes me a little iffy on the map sometimes. Why would we have The Last of Us scare zone over in New York, but the house is over in the parade buildings way in the back of the park? Just doesn't make sense for the continuity of everything. Usually they want you to go into a house and then come out into that zone that's relating to the house, so you feel like you're in that world of The Last of Us. Doesn't make sense that you would go to The Last of Us way in the back of the park and then you're gonna see Last of Us way on the other side of the park. It just doesn't make sense in my thinking of looking at this map. It doesn't make sense. And speaking of that top secret IP that could be coming, we did a Halloween Horror Nights construction video at Universal Studios Orlando. And let's see if maybe you can spot some clues in that video of what could be coming to Halloween Horror Nights this year.